All right, Chassidus on the Parsha's Matos. So today we'll be looking at a piece from the More of a Shamish. So first we're going to read a pasuk that's relevant to our drasha. Umikne Rav Haya Levenei Ruvain Levenei Gad Atzum Me'od. Vayiru es Eretz Yazer ve'es Eretz Gilad vehine hamakom makom mikne. Very large herds belonged to the children of Ruvain and Gad, an extremely large number, and they saw the land of Yazer and the land of Gilad, and behold, the region was an area for livestock. So to give some context, up to this point, the Jewish people had just gone to war with Sichon and Og, and they captured a bunch of their land, which was on the other side of the Jordan River, which that land was not originally supposed to be part of Eretz Yisrael. But now that we captured it, Hashem told us that, yeah, you can add that to the land of Israel. Now, this land, while it does have a sanctity to it, it doesn't have the same level of sanctity as the regular part of Eretz Yisrael, like on the western side of the Jordan River. Now, in this week's Parsha, what we see is that the Bnei Reuven and the Bnei Gad, they ask Moshe Rabbeinu for permission to settle on the other side of the Jordan River. And the Torah gives us a reason for it, because it says, V'hine hamakom makom mikneh. And behold, the region was an area for livestock. Now, at face value, this is a very perplexing request. I mean, this is the land that Hashem promised Avram Avinu. This is the land that Moshe Rabbeinu was dying to go into, meaning, this is the land meaning Eretz Yisrael, the regular part of Eretz Yisrael, like where Jerusalem is, right? And the Bnei Gad and the Bnei Reuven, they're seemingly saying, oh, let's not go there. I'm going to stay on the eastern side of the Jordan River. Yeah, that whole promised land thing and that whole thing that Moshe's dying to get into, we'll stay out of there. We don't need to go in there. We'll stay on the eastern side of the Jordan River. We won't go to that western side. Now, at face value, this is very perplexing. These were great tzaddikim and people that Hashem deemed worthy of coming into Eretz Yisrael. And we even see that later on in the verses that it seems to be that Moshe at first is a little upset by their request, but then he seems to be pacified. Yet, it doesn't really quite make sense. How could these great tzaddikim, who Hashem deemed worthy of coming to the land of Eretz Yisrael, choose gashmias, physicality, like a place of good real estate, so to speak, over Eretz Yisrael, which is a place of ruchnias? How were they not punished for this? How is this not made a bigger deal in the Torah? How does Hashem even allow this to happen? So this reminded me, to get our answer, of the Mefarshim on a Gemara, I believe in Megillah, that say that if a person just does one mitzvah purely l'shem shamayim, so you got to memorize that terminology, l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. You do a mitzvah purely for the sake of heaven, only for God, without any other intentions. If you can do that one time in your entire life, you put on tefillin just one time, and you did it with the right intentions, you merit olam haba, the world to come. And we have to keep in mind that the tzaddikim are very cognizant of this. So now, with that little introduction, we can get into the answer of the More of a Shamish. So we know that we have a mitzvah to conquer the land of Eretz Yisrael. And the land of Israel is also described as the best land in the world. It's described as a land flowing with milk and honey. So the Bnei Reuven and the Bnei Gad, the More of a Shamish says, they were worried. They said, we want to conquer the land of Israel like Hashem told us to. But you know what? That's a very hard mitzvah to do l'shem shamayim. Why? Because the land that they were conquering was going to be the land that they were going to live in. So while they were doing the mitzvah of conquering the land, it's very hard to not think in your brain, oh, I'm acquiring gazillions of dollars worth of real estate. It's impossible for a person not to have these thoughts. So the Bnei Reuven and the Bnei Gad, they were part of the conquest of the Sichon and Og. And when they were doing the conquest, or maybe about to do the conquest, the More of a Shamish says, they realized that the land of Sichon and Og was only good for flocking and grazing. Meaning, the More of a Shamish says everybody understands the psukim wrong. When you read the psukim themselves, it sounds like this, that Bnei Reuben and Bnei Gad were like, oh, the other side of the Jordan is really good for grazing, implying that it's better land, and we're going to choose an area of better land. No, the More of a Shamish says, you misunderstood. Grazing is a lower level than farming, meaning you need better land to do farming than you do to do grazing. Think about it. Farming is something that's much more renewable. Like, people grow crops years after years on the same area, and they can grow tons of it and they can sell it. You're much more limited when it comes to grazing animals. So he says you're misunderstanding the psukim, meaning it's not that outside the land of Israel is better because it's better for grazing. It means the Bnei Reuven and Gad are saying we're going to take that land even though it's only for grazing, even though it's a lower level. It can't be that that land is better than Eretz Yisrael. It can't be. There's no land better than Eretz Yisrael according to the Torah. The land of Eretz Yisrael could be used for grazing and for farming and payros and stuff like that. Okay, but that's not true of the other side of the Jordan. So what are we trying to say here? We're saying that the land outside of Eretz Yisrael, there was no taiva really for that land. There was no desire for that land because it could only be used for grazing. It was a very low-level land. So Reuben and Gad were participating in the conquest of that land outside of Eretz Yisrael. They weren't doing that for real estate purposes to become billionaires. They were doing it because there was a mitzvah that Hashem told us to conquer the land of Sichon and Og. And they did that mitzvah perfectly. But they wanted to do another mitzvah perfectly, which is conquering the actual land of Eretz Yisrael. And tzaddikim are always trying to do as many mitzvahs as they can perfectly. So they said, well, okay, we did the land of Sichon and Og perfectly because there was no taiva to conquer that land. That land is not chashiv. It's not important land. But the land of Israel, that one is almost impossible to do perfectly because of all the fruits and the dates and the honey and the milk and all these types of things, right? So they said, you know what we'll do? We will stay only our houses. Our houses will be outside of the land of Israel. We'll tell Moshe Rabbeinu this, that we only want the houses outside the land of Israel so that we can do the mitzvah of conquering Israel totally l'shem shamayim because we're not getting any of the property that's in there. And therefore, our mitzvah of conquering the land of Israel will not be tainted with other thoughts. So this is a classic type of Hasidic interpretation, showing us how our holy ancestors, they weren't steeped in vanity and physicality, even though sometimes the verses make it look like that. But what a person has to do is do a lot more thinking and try to understand the real reason behind our ancestors' decisions. So let us this Shabbos, and in general, I guess, try to emulate our holy ancestors and try to find ways and strategies for all of us to do more mitzvahs like the Bnei Reuven and the Bnei Gad, totally l'shem shamayim. Have a great Shabbos.